Just don't know when yet.
Per usual, we have a botched beginning. Welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Marty.
I'm Roger.
And I'm Lakewood.
And this is the Growing with Fishes podcast. Sorry for the late start today. One of the other guests was having some technical difficulties, and we were trying to get it ironed out, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get it ironed out. Maybe we won't. If not, we'll get him on again in a different podcast. We thought we had everything working before, and then something changed with his setup, and now we can't get him back working again. So hopefully we'll get the kinks worked out. So today we have end up getting Kingdom Aquaponics on. We also have True Aquaponics, Roger from True Aquaponics. And we also have the other Roger, Roger Latewood. He's here from what was the website? iGrow.
Well, yeah, I'm the administrator and moderator at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com.
Yeah. And then we have Artie over there, who's got
Hello. AP meds.
all kinds of shit. Yeah.
Take your pick. AP meds, Patreon, YouTube. We got all kinds of crap up.
Today we're gonna talk about nutrients and stuff. We have we'll have give the floor over to Roger here for a bit. For those of you who don't know, Roger is a pretty successful aquaponics company called True Aquaponics. They have all different kinds of cool different nutrient information sheets and different cool things on his website. He's here to talk to us about a couple of different things. Thanks for coming, Roger. Roger?
I'm sorry. I missed that last part. My apologies.
Oh, I was just giving you a little intro. giving you a little intro.
Yay!
Saying you're here joining us today to talk to us about a couple of different, latest questions and stuff coming in the season this time of year, and what's been going on with you and what's new with you. And you're one of the. We haven't had too many returning guests so far yet. The first episodes we had a long time ago, about a year ago. So it's kind of nice to have you back on the show. We enjoy your forum. For those of you who don't know, Roger is a pretty big private Facebook group called True Aquaponics and answers a lot of people's questions. And it's a pretty cool group, so definitely check that out as well. But he's here to join us today. Thanks for joining us, Roger.
Absolutely happy to be here. Glad to join again, as a matter of fact. Yeah, the Facebook group, for the folks that have been in some of them, some of the groups can be pretty rough, and we try to maintain a drama-free zone to where you can ask any question. You're not going to be hammered over it. We've seen people be hammered in some of the groups if they don't know the little what most people think simple. When you first start, it's not so simple. So we try to give everybody a good place to go where they can feel safe asking any question.
That's good. That's good.
And it's any subject.
Should be that way.
What are some of the more common problems you're seeing lately with some of the people you've been working with?
Right now, the biggest issue we're seeing are pests, such as aphids and whiteflies, and what's coming on strong this last week is powdery mildew. That is probably the number one plant killer we're going to see for the next month or so, or maybe even longer. My Michael, yeah. So anyway, one of the questions we had come in is, what do we do with powdery mildew once we have it on our plants? And this happened just today. There's a couple of things you can do. You can cut the affected part of the plants off and do it carefully. Try not to shake it around, get mold or mildew spores on other parts of the plants and other plants. Some people use raw milk. They say that works. We use a mixture of baking soda and water and just spray the plants where they're affected. And that change into an alkaline tends to kill that mildew rather rapidly. But what we've started doing, and we've been preaching it for the last 2 months, is preventative measures to stop it from happening to begin with. And thanks to Steve here, we learned about potassium silicate, and we started using it. We sent out some free packs to some folks. They started using it, and the results have been phenomenal for the folks that have stepped up and said, okay, let's go ahead and do a little preventative maintenance. Let's get ahead of the curve on this one. And those folks don't have the same issues with powdery mildew that they had last year. A lot of their pest outbreak issues that they had last year, they don't have this year, us included. So it's just a phenomenal nutrient supplement. And the silica is actually, it should be an essential supplement or nutrient rather, but it's just not listed that way yet. And I think that's ridiculous.
I wanted to say on the milk, the commercial hydroponic greenhouses use that a lot, but they do dilute it. They don't just use plain milk out of the jug. They dilute it. So, like maybe a gallon. I think they use maybe a gallon.
Yeah, it's about 30%.
Yeah,
the additional for greenhouses is about 30% water. It actually works good. That works much better for caterpillars. If you have lots and lots of caterpillars, makes them violently lactose intolerant until they just poop out all of their guts and they die. But the silica, I just did some testing with that back, long time ago in the house, and it just made such a night and day difference in the powdery mildew. It just completely the different plants we had, be it the squash or the cucumbers or tomatoes, and it's why it's not talked about more in aquaponics, especially, I do not know, because it really does make such a night and day fungal outbreaks. And also in cannabis could help prevent bud rot and a bunch of other stuff that you really don't want off in your system.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how you apply it in your situation, Steve, but for us, because of our high pH nature of our water that comes out of our tap, and we're on a deep well, we spray ours on, and that protective shield that silica builds up on the leaves has just been phenomenal. I'm used to having powdery mildew this time of year on squash and any melon plants, even tomato plants, and we're just not seeing any of it yet. Even with our high humidity this year from all the storms moving through, just not seeing it.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really something that we need to see. It'd be great to see somebody try and do like a doctorate paper on, or some kind of further longer term study and on the collegiate level with just about the silica.
Yeah, that would be nice to see. Absolutely would be.
Yeah, one of the treatments that I do is, basically to get silica and treat with silica in the same way is horsetail fern is one of the things that I like to ferment. You can harvest it locally, and it's a very high concentration of silica and fairly easy to extract and use. So that's another option that you can use too, and it's sort of been a treatment, an age-old treatment of per PM all the way back from like where I first heard about it was from a guy who farms pumpkins just down outside of Reading, and he swore by it all the time and sprays all of his pumpkin plants with it, and it grows everywhere around here. It's any place that has a stream or a small mud puddle in some situations can grow horsetail in this environment. So there's huge patches of
If you do propagate it in your aquaponics system, make sure you dedicate one bed to it, or you put it in a couple layers of thick cloth bags, because the root system will take over an entire grow bed and just lock up the whole bed. Like, it is very voracious. So you can easily propagate it in a media bed if you do want to dig up some of it and bring it home. It's a great medicinal herb. It'll help with your joints. It'll help with all different kinds of stuff. Marty, are you using it with your labs or with your compost tea?
For sure. And you can also, there's a company called Tea Lab, and they have a product called I think it's called Soil Life Inoculate, and it has a bacteria in it specifically for solubilizing silica. So you can check that out as well. Be a good thing to add. I've added it here to mine. And last year I fed horsetail fern tea probably about 4 times, and I never had plants that had as strong of root systems, as strong of limb structure, incredibly buoyant and flexible, yet extremely strong. I mean, I basically just had relatively large cages around them in a circle that they really grew out of. And even though we had up to like 40-mile-an-hour gust winds, I didn't have a single branch break. So that gives you the kind of the idea of flexibility that they had, um, you know, and strength both. Because gusty wind is always an issue, because once they get heavy on the ends, just like they want to droop down or anything else, they start really whipping back and forth in the wind and can snap off branches pretty easy. So, I really attribute a lot to the big boost of silica that they had on a regular basis. So, I highly recommend that. If you don't want to purchase silica, then a great way to get around that is by harvesting your own horsetail fern. But one thing to keep in mind about doing it in your own beds is that you'll be pulling silica out of your system, kind of like what Steve was talking about, is that it'll take over and it'll suck up a lot of the stuff that you want to put back. So if you're harvesting it in the wild and bringing it into your system, it's an input. If you plant it in your system and it's growing, then it's going to take those nutrients away. While it is great to grow, like he's saying, definitely dedicate a bed or maybe even a separate system to it, so you're not soaking up all the silica in one system, because it will grow extremely fast, and it's a lot like mint or something like that will just spread like crazy and take over an entire bed pretty quickly.
Yep. And then you were saying you've had a lot of people with white flies. White flies, good.
Yeah, white flies have been a real issue this year. Most people misdiagnose when they have white flies. They think they have aphids, and that happens in our group. We see it a lot. We'll get a picture that's a little fuzzy and it's hard to tell, and everybody assumes aphid because it's so popular. Not that that's a good thing that be popular, but everybody says aphid off the bat, and in a lot of cases we're seeing white flies this year instead of aphids. And unfortunately, I'm just not real adept of how to take care of them, because I've never had to deal with them. Here in Texas, or in my part of Texas, rather, we just hadn't seen them much. So hopefully, with a little input from you, Steve, we can, and you were telling me before the show, the predatory wasp are a great way to go, especially in greenhouse conditions. But hopefully we can pick your brain and find out some other good remedies to take care of them.
Can you read that?
If you have, if it's an enclosed space, a greenhouse, or he's got them in Carcia formosa. Here, let me click on the Marty's thing here.
Do you guys see that? I don't know if it's focused or not.
There you go.
Laptop took a shit.
Not particularly, but there you back up a little bit. There you go. In Carcia formosa. There you go. That's the one that is the real good one.
Company you can get it from. You want to switch back over? Check that out.
Bionomics.
I don't have any in here right now, and for you guys that have been following along, you'll know that I've had various bugs in here, because these were, I call them rescue plants. I got them from friends, and I had to replace all my plants because of they hermed out due to genetics. And so I had to replace all my plants, and I picked up basically all the stragglers from all of my friends that grew. So I had a variety of bugs in here, and so I released a ton of beneficial bugs. I have a ton of lacewings, whitefly predators, fungus gnat predators, spider mite predators, praying mantis, all kinds of different stuff. And I haven't had any whiteflies, thankfully. I did have some fungus gnats, which are relatively under control now. And the big one was stripes or thrips, however you want to say it. And they're mostly under control now too, but they still pop up. Anytime it gets really warm, I'll have a little hatching, and then kind of have to do spot control. But those parasitic wasps do work great for whiteflies. I would highly recommend checking them out. I didn't have any issues with it on this particular indoor grow, and we do have them. I basically live in a wetland, so everywhere outside of my house is basically full of good and bad bugs. And so we definitely have whiteflies in the area, and I haven't had them in here. And I did release these both inside and outside. Um, they're relatively cheap. They're not super expensive as far as beneficial bugs go. So I would highly recommend checking them out. Um, and then also check out, they have a recommended temperature and humidity range. So like the humidity, generally I drive it down pretty far in flower, and so you want to jack it up a little bit, get close to that 50% mark, which where you have to start getting close to flirting with PM once you start driving the humidity up in your room. But hopefully you can kind of find the balance between the two. So I set mine to about 50, and it goes from about 45 to 55. Haven't had any PM issues, but definitely if you're using beneficial bugs, check out what the environment is, because it's not going to do you any good to pour out a bunch of predator mites. If the humidity is so low, all they're going to do is do everything they can to get away or find a different environment. They're not going to stick around and eat anything. So, that's the beneficial bug aspect of it. Definitely works. And I just think that you have to provide a somewhat healthy environment for the beneficial bugs that you want to stick around. So there's little things you can do, like spraying down bugs with water, or like here you can see in the background I have these high intensity lights. So bugs that fly aren't really great on this particular canopy, because they'll just fly up into the light, die, and then fall down and get stuck on my buds, and that doesn't really help anything. So that's that would kind of be my advice about that, is you can pick and choose. So I've put out a lot of lace wings and different crawling predators. Lace wings are super easy. You can just get a little card like this, hang them up on your plants, and they hatch in about 2 days or so. And they're little crawling tanks. They're pretty awesome.
Well, white yellow sticky traps work great too. Those cards, they work great in the grow room, small grow room.
Yeah, I have some sticky prints up there too. Some little sticky yellow sticky, just the same ones you buy at the dollar store. Whatever.
Yeah, you pick them anywhere.
Yeah.
For greenhouses or full grow rooms, it really works. Nothing works better than those Incarcia formosa. I mean, I've seen them wipe out pretty high populations.
You talking about the white cards, you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
The wasps, the wasp eggs.
Oh, the wasps. Yeah.
Yeah, if you Google those, you can see pictures of them, and they're little flying wasps. They fly around and find the eggs. They're highly effective. So I would check them out for sure if you got whitefly issues. They're more expensive than ladybugs, but they're not as expensive as predator mites. So somewhere in the middle there, you'll be able to find them relatively inexpensive.
I think when you're talking about saving a crop in your greenhouse, whatever it is you're growing, a little bit of expense like that's well worth it.
Yep. Just be mindful that some of these places take a little while for it to actually get to your house.
Like if you ship it?
Well, yeah, because some of these, unless you order it directly from their website, you have to go get it, and then sometimes it takes a few weeks for them to get back to you, and you're better off ordering it online and getting them shipped immediately. I guess is my point.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm lucky enough where I have a beneficial bug place that is, only about 20 minutes from here, so I can just go pick up stuff.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the level of legality in your state. It's kind of funny. I was having this conversation with somebody else the other day. You get, even if you're just a regular gardener in a legalized state, you get really used to just being able to go down to the local garden center or hydro store or whatever, because we have so many of them. There's how many of them do you have in Oregon? I know I could probably go to 30 of them within a 20-mile radius of my house.
I would probably say there's at least I don't know, maybe 10 in the Rogue Valley, which would be a pretty good sized area. But I would say at least 10. A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our non-legal state, in our city, we've got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
did
live in the
notice.
country. We have none.
Yeah. Well, I live in the
Noticed
country
the
too, but
last.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. I'm sorry. I was just commenting back to him. Sorry. To Roger.
That's all right. So the last little newspaper clipping I got from the co-op, the local co-op here, had pretty much a whole page of advertising that might as well said "Weed growers, look here." It was like smart pots and nectar of the gods and like basically everything on the page. The top might as well just have like a big
Really
pop.
good tomatoes.
Like, we're definitely marketing to you, motherfuckers. So it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. I would have liked it better if it had a big leaf on top, but I was glad to be marketed to as a customer with money. Like they get it. Yay.
Well, I used to, so I don't know, it doesn't really matter now, but so I worked in the pet trade for a long time, and we all get paid commission. You know, we have to make, you know, minimums, and then if we hit our minimums, you know, 5 or 6 grand, we get 5% of that and 5% after. And it would be pretty hard to do that if you just had to like sling crickets and feeder mice and like the occasional goldfish and stuff. Not goldfish, but you know what I mean? Like you're not going to hit that doing that, but you will if you get good at selling grow light setups. And when you're in a not, you know, less than legal state, it's a lot easier to find grow lights at a pet store for coral um, than it is anything else. So you know, you learn how to cater to these people and give them the right setups and the right timers, and the, you know, some of the timers will blow up your HIDs because of the way that they handle the wattage when they shut off and all, and you figure it out and you get good at it, and then you pass that knowledge on to some of the people that are growing really awesome tomatoes in their car, and you know, and sometimes they come back and give you some of their really awesome tomatoes, you know. That's how a lot of that works. So people get grow lights in other states.
Awesome tomatoes. I love it.
The green tomatoes, that's what it was. Green tomatoes.
Yeah, that's the big running joke around here for grow shops for years is anytime they're advertising tomatoes, you know, they're really like it's like code. They're like, yeah, come yield the big. You know, they have some sign about some you know, increased yield, like bat guano, like some, you know, high phosphorus and potassium fertilizer, and then they're like, so you can grow the biggest tomatoes ever. And it's like just a way to be sarcastic, and it's pretty funny. I enjoy it. There's a place here called I think it's called In Out Gardens or something like that, and basically their whole logo is just two big giant tomatoes on the vine.
I think Roger's
They're
just
not
sitting
talking
over there
tomatoes.
taking notes, you know.
Which one?
Oh, probably both of them. Especially for big for increases tomato yields on your.
Well, we tell people on the forum all the time when they can't, like they live in Australia or somewhere and they can't even get nutrients, you know, so we just tell them, or even here in the so many people live in the country nowhere near a hydro store, so we tell them go get the best nutrients you can buy for tomatoes, you know. So that's kind of a running joke too. So the tomato thing works for me, you know.
Yep, it works too. They do feed, you know, pretty similarly, so it's not unfounded. It's just become such a running joke anymore that at least here that
grow the biggest tomatoes you've ever seen with
yeah,
nectar of the gods.
super frosty tomatoes, super frosty, the frostiest tomatoes you've ever seen.
Oh. Y'all gonna have people trying to roll up tomato leaves. It's gonna kill them with deadly nightshade.
No, don't ever try to smoke. No, but you can use corn leaves. For those of you that don't know, you can use organic corn leaves as blunt wraps.
Oh yeah, I just planted
I've
corn
seen
in my
people
backyard.
use. I've seen people use onion papers too in Jamaica.
Onion papers.
Yeah, the outside of an onion, the real super thin layer.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking that must taste weird.
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite. But I love the corn. The corn tastes hella good.
We happen to have some organic corn growing right now, as a matter of fact.
I just planted some starts today. Well, actually, my wife planted them. I shouldn't say I did. She'll get mad at me. My wife just planted some corn today.
Yeah, don't mess with a pregnant woman.
Yeah.
No, I can outrun her. Be all right.
Not forever. Not forever.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, for now. For now.
Let's
Yeah,
see.
for now.
Yeah, you're about to have 2 daughters and a wife? Yeah.
Yeah, you're outnumbered now.
And you wonder how I'm still alive.
Yeah, it's because he's got all those. He's got his older set of girls in the garage. It's the only way he can make it through.
That's what
I don't
I
know.
say. Every man needs a harem.
Right?
That was good. Yeah.
Oh man. So yeah, with white flies can also you can deal with them through spraying the leaves and all. We like to use Kapow. We had Kapow on a couple episodes ago. He's a super cool guy, and their product works really good. You can also use azadirect. Well, you have to be much more careful, but you can use an azadiractin based. You spray Azamax or Azagard. If you're really careful and use a fogger and do your best not to get it in the water.
And if you're not in flower.
Yeah, not in flour as well. Definitely don't put it as a directed on flour. Or if you're going to make concentrates out of it, don't do that either. What else? What else would you recommend for white fly, Marty? I'd say usually with those two, I pretty much only have been dealing with more enclosed grows. So usually it's just the wasps, and you kind of spray them off with your normal bug spray, Kapow,
white flies are, they can be tough.
And let the wasps loose.
Because you have to, treat them at multiple stages, sort of like, the thrips or thripes, where they have multiple stages of life at different parts of the plant. Part of the plant, they can be in the soil. In case of white flies, obviously, they can move up and down the plant. So it's, like one thing that's obvious, like spider mites, for instance, you're pretty much going to find them on the underside of leaves. Like that's, you're not going to find them, they'll travel up and down the stalk, but for the most part, you pretty much know where you're going to find them. But I feel like you sort of need an all-out kind of assault on, white flies, thripes, fungus gnats, pretty much any of those that travel. So, I would say pretty much any of your like enzyme-based sprays will work as long as you get direct contact. And that's really the biggest issue with that is if you don't get direct contact, once it dries, there's no real like residue or anything that's left behind, like essential oils. When you use something that's like a surfactant that will cover a leaf and then also leave behind a residue, like they talked about with Kapow. I think he said lemongrass was what he uses for what is left over in a little bit of a residue on the plant, so that when new hatches ingest it, they die off relatively quickly. Whereas with enzyme sprays, you have to spray relatively consistently because it's not going to kill anything that isn't hatched. So if there's an egg laying there and you spray it, it's not going to keep the egg from hatching, and that's really the sort of the difference. So I usually do like a rotation where I do a relative. Again, all of this is you really don't want to treat anything in flower. So all of this I'm talking about is for veg. Really about the only thing that's safe to spray during flower would be an enzyme-based spray, and even then you can burn some hairs and cause some issues. So right now I'm essentially talking about veg. So what I would do for a rotation would be to spray like a heavy essential oil spray, and so mix like a Kapow, or mix up yourself something like a lemongrass, peppermint, oregano, like pretty much lavender. A lot of those can be relatively effective. You can Google up a recipe for it, and like Dr. Bonner's soap, for instance, is another one that you can mix in there. So I would Google like an essential oil IPM spray, and you should be able to find a relatively good recipe. There's a video of how I make mine on my YouTube channel. If you really want to check that out too. So that's what I'd start with, is a heavy essential oil spray across everything. Make sure you get the tops of all of your root zones. If you have any soil, make sure you hit those. And the stock of the plant is always important for anything that's crawling, like aphids in particular, moving up and down. So make sure you treat the stock, get everything really good, and maybe hit with an enzyme spray the next day. And then I put out beneficials and release a whole bunch of them, and I start to monitor and get an idea of what my good to bad bug ratio is. And if my good to bad bug ratio starts going in the wrong direction, then I either release more bugs, depending on if it's pretty severe, then I'll reset the whole cycle and start spraying again. And so I'll go through and spray with essential oil and enzyme again, and then release more beneficials again. And then usually by the second or third wave of doing that, you're pretty well cleaned up. So, and that's relatively, for anything that moves up and down the plant, I feel like you have to get all of those bases. And so for the ones that move up and down a lot, again, I use a lot of lacewings as sort of my primary predator, because they also move up and down the plant. And then I use like thrips, mites, or predators, they're called, and I forget what their actual name is. I have a container around here for them somewhere, but I'll post it. I think it's Hippopus, or you know what I'm talking about, Steve?
Which one?
Hipposis.
For the predator mites?
They call it a thrip predator is what's
The
labeled
thrip
as.
predator? I'm not
I
sure
forget
on that one. Is it another
They're calling
thrip,
it,
or
like,
is it a
primarily
mite, or what is it?
Yeah, they call it a, it's like a predator mite, and they call it a thrips predator is what it's labeled as. I'll have to look up the name of it, but
Okay.
it's basically a small mite, crawls around on top of the soil. So, that's really about the whole cycle that I go through with each one of those, and it'll clear up just about anything. The only thing, obviously, russets can be an issue, and
Russets are easy if you use nematodes, because russets always breed in the soil. Then
Yeah.
the eggs are always in the soil. The nematodes will kill them in the soil zone. I was super terrified of russets and soil aphids before then. Before I figured out how well nematodes work.
For sure. For anything that's soil based, beneficial nematodes are generally effective. Anything that reproduces above the soil
Absolutely.
will not be okay.
We're gonna Roger from True Aquaponics only has a couple more minutes before he has to get going. It's a little bit later where he is. So we're gonna give him the floor again for a couple minutes.
Thanks, guys. It's great getting the information about how to battle these bad bugs, especially. I know a lot of the folks from True Aquaponics Facebook group are going to love hearing about it. And the reason they're going to love it is because they haven't proactively been stopping the bugs before they get there. And that's something we really focused on since late last year, was becoming more proactive with making sure our plants were healthy. And that's what nature does when it sees an unhealthy plant. It sends in what we call a pest bug or a bad bug to take that plant out and get it out of the ecosystem so the new healthier plant can grow in its place. So that's kind of what we've started doing. It seems to be working really well. We've had lots and lots of feedback that was really great from a great many different people that are growing in a lot of situations, whether it be indoor, outdoor. Not now, R2. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that.
Got Android slaves in the back. That's how he keeps the store running. He doesn't have human workers. He's got robots.
Hey, I don't have the money to pay people.
Here first.
I'm too cheap. Too cheap. Anyway, we've gotten lots of good feedback from people that are growing in grow rooms like you, Marty, small to large greenhouses, on up to greenhouses that are super large. A couple thousand to 20,000, 30,000 square feet. Some of them with aquaponic systems with 120,000 gallons in them. Really, pretty good sized systems, and they're finding that proactive action of making sure the right nutrients are in the water to begin with for the plants to uptake is really cutting down on their pest problems. And then, of course, with the addition of the potassium silicate putting that silica on the plants has cut down on their powdery mildew issues, cut down on some other disease issues that they were seeing. And I haven't got a lot of reports of that, of what actually was not occurring that was occurring before. Just, hey, we're not seeing issues. So it's been a real big thing for us to get proactive instead of waiting to see, look at your plant and say, okay, well, it's iron deficient or potassium deficient or whatever, then adding it, being reactive. If you start being proactive, if you know what it's going to need, go ahead and make sure it's there in the proper amounts, and move that direction. A lot of these pest issues fall off. You're still going to have them. You're still going to get some pests. There's no way around it. That's just the way nature works. But if you can cut down on having these huge outbreaks, I think a lot of people will be a lot happier. And with that, I'll hand it back to somebody else, and I'm going to have to get out of here pretty quick.
Thanks for coming, Roger. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's
We
always a
enjoyed
pleasure.
hearing about that.
Yeah, you're welcome anytime.
Great. Hopefully I can get some more sleep and soon and jump back in here with you guys. It's awful. I get up at 2:45 my time, and usually I'm in bed at 7:30 or so. And for me, it's almost 9:30, so a little bit late. Anyway, guys. Oh yeah, it's way past my bedtime. Old as I am, All right.
All right. Take care.
Good night,
Hope
Roger.
to see y'all soon. Hope to see y'all soon again. Bye.
Alrighty.
Well, here we are.
What have you been up to lately, Roger? Or what have been your big topics on your online forum, or what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I just was hanging out, listening, seeing what was going on tonight. I've been working hard on our new websites. That really don't want to announce all the names yet because, I realized I did that one night and our store wasn't ready really. So we had a lot of visits, but Aquaponic Dummy's got all his Facebook groups going on, and we had 750 visitors in 1 week a couple weeks ago. So I haven't talked to him about the stats. So for something that's really not open yet, I was pretty happy to see 750 visitors. So maybe we're heading in the right direction in that. But pretty much I'm just getting ready to start some new babies with some of Robert's genetics. I got his little fruity pack this time. I'm real excited about it. I finally got Amsterdam blueberry, the real shit from Amsterdam, and I cannot wait to try some of that. I got some strawberry kush and some pineapple haze, and also everybody's been ranting about it, saying it was one of the most popular strains out there now. I got some Blue Dream, although you guys, I don't even know if you guys have heard of it. I mean,
Yeah. Blue Dream's a pretty actually. Marty, you want to have we could have probably a whole short conversation on Blue Dream. Blue Dream's a really good bread and butter strain. If you want a strain that's pretty relatively mold and mite resistant, pretty hard to fuck up, you can screw up a lot and still get a decent yield. You can totally not pick up on a couple of the nutrient cues that it'll give you, and it'll still yield decently. The plant's just it's kind of more of a bulletproof, starter strain that a lot of dispensaries grow. It has a pretty good turnover rate. It's an 8 to 10 week strain, pretty quick turnover, yields well, pretty hard to kill.
Yeah, I'd be honest. I hate my ignorance, but I don't follow breeding much. I don't really care about that part of the industry, and
Right.
I mean, it makes me ignorant in that respect a little bit. I mean, I know what's good and where it comes from and what it is, but I've had offers to be a breeder and work with somebody to build a seed bank, and I frankly don't want to do it. I don't care. I don't want to do it. I realize you might be able to make a ton of money, but I just don't want to do it. I just want to teach people how to grow and grow my own meds and be happy.
That's what I'd love to do, is finally just move to just breeding and not doing other stuff. That'd be great. Just sit around and play with strains all day. I have such a ridiculous seed bank now.
Well, I think if I was
Blue Dream, I would just say, kind of like what Steve was saying, is just, it's a good, sort of starter strain or standard strain. It's incredibly resistant. I guess I sort of look at, if you think about it like car engines, it's sort of like the Chevy 350, it's like pretty much know what you're going to get.
Training wheels, the bicycle with training wheels of weed.
Oh, really? Like that? Well, see,
go that far, but it's definitely, it's your standard. I guess genetically, it's it's sort of standard, and a lot of people have grown it, and it's paid the bills of many of growers. I would put it that way. It's definitely, like you said, it's relatively easy to get large yields on, and in terms of quality, it's going to be, it may have a low ceiling, that that some people, either you love it or you hate it. I guess is kind of
Oh, okay.
the big thing with it.
Well, I just got it because so many people on the forum were ranting and raving about it, and we've had entries in our Bud of the Month contest, and
Oh yeah, and it grows fast. It grows tall. It grows bushy. You can train it. You can not train it. I mean,
cool.
it's very flexible, for sure.
I've
Seen it grown lots of times.
It's super forgiving, and I think that's why a lot of us. It's super popular for that reason too. But it's popular because it's easy to count on the fact that it's going to have like a minimum wheat yield, and I think that's really what it comes down to for a lot of dispensaries.
Oh, I see. Yes, so it's your workhorse kind of like AK-47 was, right? Kind of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day.
I have one of my favorite strains actually is called Blue Hash, which is a hash plant Blue Dream hybrid, and it just has a super good flavor, super good CBD, super good, it's real resistant to damn near everything. The mites and aphids seem to ignore it, even when it's attacking other plants in the grow. That's one of my favorites. It's one of my highest CBD strains too I've had. The plants are bigger. I mean, it's a larger plant. It's more of a greenhouse strain than an indoor grow strain, just because of how large the plants get, even in a short flip. But
wow.
it's more of a slightly sativa dominant. But it just,
I can
man,
a
you
lot
get
of
such a
short
good.
growers
Go ahead.
that still really like it because it grows so fast that they
Yep.
can turn it over relatively quickly. So
Yep.
and that just goes back to it being really flexible. It grows fast. It will grow. It'll grow big, and it's relatively forgiving,
Cool.
and you can get some great smoke out of it for sure. I've had some that I really enjoyed. Some people, feel a little snobby about it, but hey, they probably get snobby about other stupid shit too.
Yep.
I think it's just because so many people have done it. I think that's probably where some of the animosity comes about Blue Dream.
Yeah, I think it comes down to people kind of consider it like a noob strain.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's just
I guess,
elitist.
for lack of better explanation for the animosity, and this is a better.
Well, that'll be cool though, because I can now see, because I didn't realize that it was looked at in that respect. So now, when I'm working on the forum and new growers are asking about a strain to grow, I can steer them to that. I mean, we steer them to our Gold Leaf, which is real high in CBD, supposedly some of the highest on the planet, and it's bulletproof. I mean, I finally got it because every time I turn around, I look at a plant somebody was growing in a grow journal, and I'd say, "Wow, that plant looks freaking awesome. What is it? Gold Leaf. It's our own strain, and I tell you, I just got through growing that twice, and it kicked ass both times. I just finished doing that with a OG Kush grow. So I did some OG Kush and some Gold Leaf, and I'll tell you what, love me some OG Kush.
I'll tell you another thing that I think that one of the reasons why Blue Dream is so popular among growers is it's super easy to clone.
Oh, that's great.
You get whole trays full of Blue Dream,
Yep.
to root, no problem. And some strains are just a pain in the ass about it, and you won't get the same kind of results out of it. But like other strains, like the sour strawberry cut I have here, I could cut 10 cuts of it right now, and I almost guarantee you 9 of them would root relatively quickly. And I have other ones I might have to leave in the cloner for 2.5 weeks before they even just start getting little white bumps on them. So Blue Dream is one of those ones that it's just easy to clone. I've taken lots of cuts of it.
It's very forgiving.
What's it bred with us? It's got to be, we got to assume it's got blueberry in it, right?
Blue Dream? I'm not sure what the parent genetics are. Look that up.
All I have is a phone, so Steve's gonna have to do that. Plus, I'm not in chat, so Steve, you'll have to check chat see if there's any questions.
Yeah, you ain't shit today. You slacking. You slacking.
Hey, is there anybody in chat? Got any questions for us, Steve?
So it's crossing blueberry indica with a sativa haze.
Ah. Well, there you go.
According to Leafly. So if you disagree with that, take it up with them. No, because I'm sure people will nitpick about everything. So.
Well, I thought it was bee blueberry. I mean, generally, it's not always the case, but it generally follows that. Like if it says it's orange, it came from California orange bud.
Allegedly, when I was younger, there used to be when I used to allegedly live near Philadelphia. Allegedly, there was a grower near, let's say, north of Philadelphia, somewhere near the river, that had just the bombest outdoor blueberry I've ever had. It was like smoking pure blueberry extract or something. It was just so good. Used to look forward to it every fall. And anyone from North Philly knows exactly what I'm talking about. It come around in October, and anyone from North Philly knows because the guy grew just ungodly amounts and had just such good product.
I had I think it was my first outdoor grow. I had blue cheese, which was DJ Short's blueberry crossed with UK cheese, and that was to date like some of the best stuff I've grown. It was really tasty. Like in terms of high and smoke in general, like taste, flavor. It was very heavy cheese, but it was also sweet. So it was a great smoke and a lot of people's favorite that year for sure.
Wow, we're carrying cheese now. I think that's what I missed. I didn't realize we had cheese in the seed banker. I might have got that Blue Dream, but we got cheese. Yeah, huh?
You know, one of the cheese breeders tried to patent it. What was his name? Big Buddha Seeds? That fucking prick. Remember that? He tried to patent it.
Maybe Big
fucking
Buddha.
Jackass.
Like that.
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. Trying to send cease and desist letters to other breeders telling them they couldn't call it cheese. Get the fuck out of here. You're a fucking nobody. You didn't develop shit. You weren't even the person who developed a strain. Get the fuck out of here. It's fucking clowns.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the things. In fact, it was funny when I got a chance to meet Remo. It was one of the things that I kind of like pestered him about. I was like, dude, you literally like interviewed him like 2 days after he made that announcement. Like, why did you not grill the shit out of that guy? Like, you should have crucified him for that shit. I don't know. It was the only criticism I've ever had to him. Otherwise, I like his content, but like that, it was like, dude, why did you not just hang that guy on his own bullshit? You know.
I'm thrilled with our company. You know, that's what I love about them. I'm been working for them over 2.5 years now, and they've been generous and they're great people. Then when you win the Bud of the Month, we give you a free 5-pack of seeds to the winner every month.
Cool.
And people go ape shit about that stuff. Well, you have to enter something grown out of our seed bank.
Oh, okay.
So what we do is we end up getting nice pictures of our genetics, you know, being recycled through the forum.
No, I like that.
Yeah, so people say, well, what is it like? Well, look in the Bud of the Month. That's all genetics from the seed bank. So I've been fortunate. These guys have got fantastic genetics, and I've been so happy because I've never had anything so vigorous. So everything pops almost, you know, way over 90% rate of germination. And I use Rockwell cubes, straight into Rockwell cubes. And within 2 days, usually my seeds pop. And
really, you're putting them straight into Rockwell? I've been working on a video series on how to germinate. So you're just popping them right into Rockwell and then letting them rip?
Yep, and they rip fast.
Huh, interesting.
Within 4 or 5 days, there's a taproot coming out the bottom.
I've always done soaking the seeds for 24 to 48 hours and then transplanting once they crack.
Yeah, I never do. I just put them straight into. Well, I take my Rockwell cubes and like I said, I've got my pretty much neutral well water. I just warm it up and run warm water over them, and and not squeeze them, but give them a light shake to get the real excess water out of there, but it's still very saturated with water. And I put it in there, rip a piece of the corner off, stuff it over the seed, and in 2 days it's popped and got a root that's grabbed because I put that little corner and stuffed it in the hole. Not like crammed it in the hole, but just put it over and made it dark. And the soaking occurs because the rock will soak and wet.
So in chat, they said that Gorilla Glue number 4 is under patent as well. Who's patenting Gorilla Glue number 4? Is it the same jackass?
He's not that guy. No.
Can you tell how I feel about about this topic?
Hard hitting Steve Dredd.
Well, no, just like people that are trying to fuck shit up for no reason should need to be called out on their bullshit. Like that's the one thing that it pisses me off on the West Coast. On the East Coast, when someone does something stupid, you highlight it. Like people don't do that enough on the West Coast.
Most people I know said it was pretty stupid, so I don't know.
Yeah, I know. Well, who did the Gorilla Glue? Does anybody know? Brian Grow and ECSD both said in chat that I don't know. It just
Where's Brain
there's
Grow?
no reason.
What, Brain Grows in chat? Why ain't he on here talking to him?
Brian Grow says his internet connection's bad and he'll be back to his normal internet connection next week. So
More technical
he's
difficulties.
traveling. He said he'll be back with us on chat. Fish Ganja guy, I guess, had to take a week off to this week too. So
Is he grounded? What happened?
no, he's not grounded. I asked him if he was grounded. He said no. He just had some other event he had to attend that was work related tonight.
So what I do with seeds, I just take these little net pots and I put a little piece of landscaping paper across the bottom so that it won't fall through. And then take this and sink it down in the media bed until the water level comes up just to about this little top part and then drops back down. So my media is always cycling. My beds are always cycling. And actually put a separator, a thin piece of separator paper in my media bed at about where the top of the water level is. So I don't have to worry about like waiting to find out where it's at or about where it is. I can just dig down, find that separator, and know that's about where the top of the water is. And I put this right on the bottom of it. And then I I did a trial that way with 15 seeds and 13 of them popped. And I tried to get the other two to pop in a paper towel, and I couldn't get them to pop either. So I think it was just the seeds. But that's how I've been doing mine for quite a while now. And I always have good luck with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, they brought it up an interesting point. So EC says that they patented live cuts, but it doesn't look like they're trying to patent the seed, according to him.
Well, there's no actual seed of Gorilla Glue. Like you can get
That's interesting because I've seen
what do you
them
call
for
it?
sale.
Feminized seeds of it, but I don't think
Well, that's interesting. Did they only release feminized seeds in that strain?
Well, some strains are clone only.
Well,
Yeah,
I know
it's
some
clone only. I
but
believe
that's
the
all
original glue. I could be wrong. So, but I'm pretty sure the original Gorilla Glue number 4 was clone only. So the only thing that they could have done is hermed it out and crossed it with something else, or crossed it with something else.
Okay, that's the answer to my question. It's a clone only strain. That's why you're questioning, and there's no seeds. Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of us out here weren't keeping, understanding what y'all were talking about there for a minute. That's why I brought that up.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and I'm not sure. I could be wrong. It might not be clone only, but that might explain why they're not doing a seed patent because there aren't any.
But anyways, I don't. So for live tissue though, it'd be pretty hard. I mean, they kind of need, or deserve to have I don't have as much of a problem if they want to have a phenome that they particularly like that they're doing live cultures from. But for seeds and trying to say that other people can't have the same name is kind of bullshit if the genetics are the same.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is too, and it's almost like Girl Scout cookie too, especially now having to change the name in one of the states and.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
I
Girl
heard
Scout.
that. I heard that.
Yeah, you can't sell Girl Scout cookie in an Oregon dispensary, and there's that one and a number of other strains that are too kid friendly. So they were deemed to be removed because they were targeting kids. So
Right.
Girl Scout cookie was one of them. I think Doctor Who was another one. You have to look it up. This was a while ago, but added to the list of stupid shit.
Wow. Yeah, I did hear about that. That was a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
I'm sure they didn't have a problem with green crack though.
Yeah.
Don't think so. Not on that one.
Yeah.
Unless Mountain Dew had some sort of trademark issue with it.
Yeah, what the fuck? This is
That might be
ridiculous. I had not heard about that, but it's laughably ridiculous.
Yeah, they did that
So,
for sure. Fact. Yeah, they did.
so if you want to sell your Girl Scout cookie, any of your Girl Scout cookies, you have to rename it to something else before you sell it.
GSC. Most people just call it GSC anyway when you buy it.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you do that either. You can't
Oh.
even just abbreviate it, since people could look up what it is easily.
What could be Gorilla Scout
People are out here
cookies?
protecting the kids, Steve. They're just out here protecting the kids from nothing.
I call mine Gorilla Scarlet Cannabis.
There you go.
Yeah.
Still can't do it, but okay.
Yeah.
I suppose if logic worked on them, then we wouldn't be having this discussion in the first place. So
This is also true. You know, one of the things I've seen a lot lately is people railing against certified pesticide lists. And it's like, guys, why would you argue against something that like prevents you from being held with any kind of liability if there is an accident? If you follow by these directions and there's some kind of liability issue, you can say, hey, I follow by these state guidelines. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems so stupid. Like, I get, yeah, that's one more pain in the ass for you to follow by, but it covers your own ass in the long run, especially if you're, one of these bigger growers or working with some of these bigger growers and suggesting some of these IPM solutions as someone that works on a bunch of bigger ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
yeah, I think
It only makes it.
that like it seems like they take out stuff that's useful. Like you don't have to have mold, mildew, and pesticide testing done anymore. Um, and that just seems ridiculous to me, to not have to do that, and then growers, like small medical growers, for instance, are now required to report on every plant from seed to harvest. How big it is, and how much you harvest off of it, and track to make sure none of your excess is going to the black market. And it just seems like uh, so much effort going into just finding out whether or not there's excess medication, to where we had already had it set up before to where any excess medication could easily go through the dispensary, with the one caveat, which was that it had to be tested so that patients knew what they were getting. You got, when you walked into the dispensary, you had a rack full of product to look at, and each product was sitting next to its lab test, which then was still reasonably priced, but that's a different discussion. And you could walk in and be able to look at any of that and know, if there was any mold found on it, and if there was any, how, what the particles were, and what suggested amount or limitations were, and what too much was. You had a lot of information directly available to you as a patient, or even just a connoisseur, I suppose. But at least you knew what you were getting, and excess had a place to go. The black market was not doing nearly as well, because all of the excess had a place to go and be sold and be taxed, and everybody be happy about it. But now that you have increased regulation and taken all that stuff away, so that you don't have to get pesticide testing done, and really the only reason behind that, in my opinion, was that you had the big hiccup with legislation again, to where you only had certain labs that were approved to do testing, which got completely slammed and brought the entire market down. And it's just been sort of one domino after the other falling. Is either they're just making poor decisions, or they're purposely, like we've talked about before, trying to create a vacuum in an otherwise stable market, and then their decisions may directly boost the black market, even though they say they're trying to make sure that none of it is going to the black market. It's pretty much having the opposite effect. People are going back underground and selling back on black markets again, because otherwise you have to go through a relatively large amount of work to document every plant that you have from seed until harvest and how much you think it is. And sometimes you may just be wrong. You may look at that plant and go, estimate it to be 3/4 of a pound. And when you cut it down, it's only a half a pound. Shit, that's happened to probably every grower that's ever grown anything. So, and then having to be responsible for that, that mistake, and reporting it differently the week before, and getting questioned about it. So any of that can be a reason for them to decide that you're not cooperating or whatever else, and boom, you're in jail. Nobody likes that shit. So it's definitely it just doesn't add up. Even if what they say they're trying to do is good, it's just not really ending up that way. But there's no reason that pesticide testing shouldn't be done, and the same for mold and mildew testing. That stuff's got to get to patients, and you got to. And if you're paying your hard-earned money for it, you want to know that it's not covered in mold. I mean, otherwise,
I don't see how they can even get away with that. That was the whole point of medical marijuana in the dispensers originally. And, I've seen many documentaries on it where a guy would have really, for the most part, perfectly good, come in with a couple of pounds of thinking he's going to get this great payday and and live off of it for the next few months. And they find a bug on his leaf, the bug poop or something, and they turn the whole thing down. Now that's sad for the grower, but I agree 100%. I mean, the medical marijuana has got to be tested for mold and mildew and spider mites and stuff like that. It's ridiculous that they would do away with that. I mean, that's just irresponsible.
right. And we they had a number of different things. Like you had the whole Guardian debacle, which sort of played into that, where Guardian was found to contain stuff that it wasn't supposed to, and eventually got, at least, I don't know if they ended up proving it or not, but I know that they got sued over different people having issues after smoking it. And I know there's, I think, 2 places in Washington that got sued after, selling questionable products, which I think was concentrate in that particular case. But, you definitely can be held liable for it. So it makes sense for the dispensary to do as well. But Oregon, at least for a short amount of time, created an issue where there was nobody certified to test it. And the people that were certified were extremely busy and not able to handle the workload. So it just became a problem. And they did the same thing to the extracts industry as well. So it's either a recurring theme or just recurring bad decisions. I guess you can decide for yourself on that one. But the end result has been a lot of small growers have been shut down or have had their plant counts drastically reduced. Like, for instance, me here, I used to be able to grow for 6 patients. Now I can only grow for myself and have my 4 recreational plants. And I can only do it inside. I can't grow outside. My neighbor needs a safe place for his nose. And
Wow.
And so the same thing happened to lots of growers around here. Now, one thing I do want, I guess since I'm kind of on the topic here, is that there was a ruling recently for people in Jackson County. If you live on rural residential land, there was a ruling on the Jackson County Commission that you don't need a certain type of permit that you needed to have before. And it's a little complicated to explain if you don't have to deal with the zoning issues in Jackson County. But basically, if you're a rural residential 5 or 10, whereas before giving everybody a grandfather clause, essentially, that allowed them to keep their old plant counts from before a lot of this stuff went into place. And now they should be able to get their grandfathering rights on those particular zones. So that's something we've talked about here before. You'll want to check that out. There was a post about it in the Right to Grow Southern Oregon group. If you guys aren't a member of that, you can join it and look at the post on that. And I think KDRV had a story about it. I'll have to look and see what the link was again. Maybe I can get Steve to throw it in the description here. But you'll want to check into it and see if you can get approved for your non-conforming use permit. They were essentially not issuing those to anybody at all, and they really should have been issuing them to a lot of people. So you may be able to go back and have your, if you were previously denied, have it reopened, or you may end up having to reapply for it, which may suck, but you may be able to keep some of your growing rights if you had them previous to 2016, I believe it was.
Oh,
So you definitely want to check that out. That just happened, I believe, day before yesterday. Oops, let me drop my lighter.
But y'all are going through. You're going through what they go through did in California a lot. Your state made laws. Now each the counties are starting to make the laws back and forth in their own interest, right?
Yeah. So
your county's different than the county next to it and the one next to it. So.
Right. So that's what changed after recreational, but not in that particular measure. But after they passed recreational and became legal, they went back and passed another bill in the state for that defined cannabis as a farm use crop. So what that allowed cities and counties to do was regulate it as a farm use crop, so they could then, instead of specifically limiting cannabis, they used that particular term, the farm use crop, to be able to limit its numbers in particular areas. So it's sort of a way to get around legislation. Measure 91, specifically said that medical marijuana patients will not, cannot be affected by any recreational panel. So there's no, or board or under any supervision. So they didn't. They're like, okay, sure, we won't do that. And then, they didn't do that. But what they did do is define it as farm use. And so now, any county or city can bring up cannabis-related issues under the guise of it being a farm use crop and being able to limit it in that way. So, for instance, here in Jackson County, they reduced the number of plants that you can have available. And in my particular case, where I am in what they call an urban residential zone, I can't grow outside at all.
Okay, so if you were on a farm, you could grow outside.
If I was on a farm, I could grow outside, and that's where the rural residential comes in.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm urban residential, but if you're rural residential, it's called RR5 or RR10. There's a couple different designations of it. And I think there's even an RR2.5 or something like that. But the decision for right now that just came down that you'll want to look up is for rural residential zones 5 and 10. They used to require that at the time you had a type 1, I believe what they call is a type 1 permit or something like that, and they just overturned that and said that growers didn't need to have that because it wasn't required to be legal at the time. So essentially they can't require them to have something that wasn't required to have at the time. So for instance, in 2015, if your grow was legal and you didn't legally have to have a type 1 permit in order to be operational there, then you don't have to have one now. And that was not how they were ruling previously. They were turning everyone down because, of course, nobody had a permit that they weren't required to have. Who's going to go to the county and get a permit that they don't need? It doesn't make any sense. And so finally, that finally came through. And so you'll definitely want to check that out if you're on rural residential land in Jackson County, which is a large portion of the county is rural residential land. So
Wow.
definitely check that out. Unfortunately, it doesn't change anything here for me on urban residential land or anybody else, which they still have really no justification as to why. But essentially, if you read the literature attached to all of the county code stuff, it's all based on the fact that the smell would be too much to ask my neighbors to deal with.
Oh, well, see, I would really think that a lot of it would have been based on the fact that it would have been available in the open yard to kids. That's what I would have thought they did. You know.
Does Oregon count greenhouses as outdoor or indoor? Because they count as indoor in Colorado.
That's a good question. They do leave it a little bit of a gray area, but for the most part, it has to, in order for it to qualify as indoor, it has to be a permanent structure with a foundation, and it has to have
temporary
supplemental
structures
lighting.
don't apply. So hoop houses wouldn't.
Hoop houses are not.
Okay, so people don't know. Usually, you can get around a greenhouse permitting with a loophole called a hoop house. Basically, as long as you're making a temporary structure that just has a footing, maybe a place where the poles anchor, and then the poles go over the ground, or you can even have flooring in there. But as long as the structure isn't mounted to like a concrete slab, in general, you can count it as a hoop house. Or if you're not using glass, as long as it's plastic sheeting or plastic paneling, generally they're considered a hoop house. And then you can get away with not having to get permits, and not all, but in a much larger area than you normally would be able to do without a permit.
That's what my greenhouse is basically. I've got rock underneath, and I put ground cloth down on top of the rock, and I've got my poles. All my poles are very, just like a fence post. Then stick in the. I got a columbine, Nexus columbine, 30 foot wide. Yeah,
Right,
that's what I did.
It's not that you can't use hoop houses here; they're just still considered outdoor, so it wouldn't be considered indoor. Even if you,
as far as being in your residential,
the second part of it, and you still have to meet whatever county code that you would have to have a permitted structure to do that, and that's kind of another gray area too, because in Jackson County, unless they changed it, you don't have to have a permit for any greenhouse structure that is less than 500 square feet. So, if you only have a 400 square foot greenhouse, then you don't really need a permit. So, I think they keep a couple of those gray areas around so they can just say no whenever they feel like it. But maybe I'm guilty. The second step to it is, so first step, you have to have a permitted structure. And the second step is that you have to have supplemental lighting, and they're relatively loose on what that term is, but for the most part, their definition of it is that grow lights existing in there specifically for plants. And so I'm like, and I'll put up some of those little solar powered ones, you know what I'm saying? They just come on for a little while and be like, hey, that's supplemental. But I can't put a permanent structure in my backyard.
Dude, just far reds. Do just far reds to wake them up in the morning and put them to sleep at night. Yeah. Technically, you're meeting everything that they need to do.
That's right. But for like a light depth situation, it might work out as well. But unfortunately for me, at my current house, it actually backs right up against the wetlands area, so I can't put any permitted structures in my backyard. So that leaves me with not too many options there, other than growing in my garage, which I'm currently doing anyway. But yeah, so it does suck, and still my plant count would be still limited to 10, which is another thing. Whereas before, let's see, at 6 patients, each one could have 6. And then I could have 4 recreational plants on top of that. So that would have been my previous limit, cut all the way down to 10.
Realistically, everyone should be able to grow 24 plants per household at least. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to grow less, because that would provide a whole family
Why should there be
worth of
limited at
people
all? Like
all
nobody's
this.
asking if I'm gonna
Well,
grant
I'm talking bare
500
minimums. Yeah, I don't think it should be. I don't think it should be limited. But if you are going to limit it, it should be at least 24 plants, because it's ridiculous. I need to have moms. I need to have clones. I need to be able to do some phenome hunting, realistically, for my own personal production. Like, that's just stupid. Like, thankfully in California, we can still have 96 plant counts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about
Right.
that personally, but it's still bullshit.
Right, and I think that California is, they have 6 for recreational, whereas Oregon has 4. And
Yep.
Oregon medical patients, you can only have 6 plants to start with anyway. So now they do let you have
Well,
both medical and recreational, so technically you can have 10. But that's the only, I can't grow for anybody besides myself anymore, which sucks. And I
well,
can't grow outdoor, which sucks even more because then I have to power these big lights to be able to do what otherwise the sun would be doing for me for free. It's ridiculous.
yeah. Why are they forcing you to spend more fuel?
Uh,
They want that tax money.
they're assholes.
They want that tax money.
It's a
We had a
topic,
couple. We had a
I've
couple
referred to.
questions from chat.
Oh, good.
We had a new viewer, which was a Chronic Farmer asked earlier, and I meant to get to this sooner, but the show does its own thing. He says, "Do you all grow from seed?"
Sometimes.
I do. I do from seed most of the time because I've got a very limited grow space. So I really can't have a cloning operation because, and then again, I don't have anything to do with it. I just don't need to grow that much. So in my case, I do. Well, we talked about it earlier. I've got a source of excellent genetics now, and I'm just going through the library, through the whole thing. So I do all my grows from seed. So.
That's great.
We had ECSD says Rhode Island just made it so you have to pay for plant tags and register your own home grow address. That's
Yep.
pretty
It's the
bullshit.
same as Oregon. You have to have. Well, you don't have to have plant tags, but it makes it a lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Well, at least you
we
get
didn't
to
have to
do
do
it.
any of that shit in Colorado. And then I could have anyone else grow my plants in Colorado, and then all I had to do is keep a copy of my license on the property, and that was about it as far as what I had to do. It's super bullshit. Why are we why are we going through this level of rigmarole and bullshit over a plant? There's a medicinal plant anyone should be able to grow in their backyard. We should not be having to do this. This is
Right, I
just
was at the farmer's market today. They were selling salvia.
yeah, Salvia divinorum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a far more destructive plant than cannabis.
Yeah, it's known to bring on suicidal tendencies. So
Right.
not all people, but or maybe not suicidal
Well,
tendencies.
it's a
But feeling
psychedelic.
like they're dying, basically, is what a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
mean it's a psychedelic, but it's still ridiculous. Or
and I'm
alcohol.
fine with them selling it. I don't have a problem with that. I just want to have cannabis sitting right next to it. That's my only
Yeah.
issue. Like, why is it that I can sit there and nobody fucking freaks out about it? You know what I mean?
Or on a semi-separate note, kratom. Why the hell are they going after kratom? Because it's a decent alternative to opioid addiction for coming off of it, for detoxing. That's why they're attacking it. It's just totally bullshit.
You mean the pharmaceutical companies are attacking it because it's hurting their profits?
Yeah, because it's a safer alternative.
Of course. That's why pot's not legal
Same,
across the board. They figured out how
same thing
to
with
do it.
ibogaine. That's why they're trying to push to make ibogaine illegal as well, because it's a good way to get people off opioids. God forbid you have something that's natural that works, or cannabis. Same reason. It's alternate. It helps people get off of opioids. That's why they're attacking it. Because what do we need right now in this country? A way to get people off of opioids. It directly competes with their bullshit. They want to put people on what's the replacement they give people?
I know.
I can't think of the name of it right now.
Methadone.
Methadone, yes. They want to put everyone on methadone, which is just an opioid replacement. It's complete bullshit. It's synthetic opioids instead. Because they can charge them for months and months and months and months and months, or years and years and years, rather than just
And most people want to
IB.
hate it. that I've seen anyway.
No, that's bullshit. They need to give people ibogaine once or twice, and then they'll never touch opioids again. Or they need to give people, kratom, which will help people wean them off in a month or two.
I've
I've
heard a
watched
lot
the
of
chart.
people having success with mushroom interventions too.
That helps as well, yeah.
Yeah, taking
Psilocybin.
or I shouldn't say a lot, but taking large doses, large carefully measured doses of mushrooms, essentially, to sort of reset your brain chemistry to be able to help overcome addiction, and also PTSD as well. So,
Yep.
If you guys Google out some info on that, you should find quite a bit on it.
So we
Steve,
have
I had another question for
That's
you.
nice to hear.
Go ahead.
Have you ever?
I said that's nice to hear. I'm sorry.
I got sent a bottle of this stuff. Can you see what it is?
What is it? pH down from who?
From Advanced Nutrients. It's basically just
No.
55% phosphoric acid.
Interesting. That's pretty strong.
And,
That's what
55
that's what we used to cut when I used to work for Aquaponics source. We used to take 55% and cut it down to 11%.
So this stuff is actually it is quite strong. It dropped my system down a lot faster than
Instantly.
other types that I put in.
It is safe though.
What's that?
It's safe to use. Just don't go crazy with it because you'll kill shit.
Oh yeah, no, it's very very small amounts. The same way we talked about, pretty much using any other acid product. You always go very small amounts at a time, but it definitely, I think for the value, I think that bottle was, I forget what they told me, it was like $23 or something like that, and to give it a try. So I'm going to. I didn't know if you'd ever used it before.
No, it's new to me. It's kind of funny to see that as a bottled product because you can get it. Well, I guess it depends on what your access to the market is, but no, I think it's a good product to use. It's one that would definitely be AP safe and probably better for larger systems.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with it in small systems for sure, just because it's so.
Oh yeah, just a drop or two, because if you overdose that even a little bit, it's gonna nuke your system, and in a small system.
Yeah. Drops. We're talking drops here.
Yep.
And I just have I don't know where it is right now, but I just use a little measuring cup, almost like a little shot glass. That's only about this big, and so I usually only do about 20 milliliters at a time, and my tank's almost 200 gallons. So I wouldn't go any more than that for sure.
No, but that's cool that they put it out. I haven't always been the biggest fan of Advanced Nutrients. I've gotten into some interesting conversations with what's his name? Big Mike, I think his name is.
Big Mike is the owner, yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't use any nutrient lines.
The last conversation I had with him was over at SoCal Cannabis Cup this year. I don't know, whatever the last one was in Southern California. I think it was last year. But yeah, they put some interesting stuff in some of their products. They have a lot of good stuff as well. You just got to, again, I'm actually, since we're talking about this, I'm actually working on a new video series. I'm doing a bunch of write-ups right now and doing some research and making sure I dot my I's and cross my T's. I'm going to do it'll be a video series just on nutrient additives for things when you buy off the shelf. So if I buy something off the shelf and it has something called saponin or yucca extract, I can say, okay, cool, let's look up that video for just saponin or yucca extract. Is this okay? And then I'll have a separate video for, monopotassium phosphate, or a separate video for potassium silicate, or and all these things, and doing them on a very individual basis and saying, hey, is this aquaponics safe? Okay, cool, it is in this particular dosage, or it isn't in this particular dosage, and kind of going over that kind of stuff so that people can buy other people's products, no matter whose they are, and figure out whether or not they can use it in their system. Because we get so many questions on it. I know Marty and I both get questions on a daily basis. Hey, can I use this in my aquaponics system? Hey, can I use this in my aquaponics system? I'm sure Roger, who was on here earlier today, hey, can I use this in my aquaponics system? Can I use this in my aquaponics system? Will this get my fish? And it's one of the most common questions that we get. So it'd be cool to kind of break it down on an individual, additive basis, and kind of slay them one by one, so that people can kind of just look up the list of ingredients they have as listed on the side of the bottle, watch the videos for those particular ingredients, and then know for themselves whether or not it's something they can safely add, and then try to roughly figure out, based on dosages, how much they would, based on what we tell you is okay.
That sounds great, man. That's going to be real helpful to a lot of people. That'll get a lot more people started when they see that they can add some stuff, because that's what's missing from a lot of first timers aquaponics systems. Or the knowledge that there are supplements and things you can add without killing the fish that will make the whole grow better. And I think that's a big learning curve that people have to get by to get into aquaponics.
You guys, you see that?
Yeah, there was just somebody asking on, I think it was Aquaponics Anonymous group, about that. You want to talk about that? We both use it, but why don't you talk about
it? Sure. I mean, basically, I have a couple of them here. I'll have a couple of things I'll talk about. Just the ones I happen to have right here. This is langbeinite, and it's basically, what it says right here: sulfate of potash, magnesia, and you can. Pretty much do this on anything. You can turn around and look at the back. The portion you're looking for is the guaranteed analysis portion. So this is like, it's like the ingredients list, except for it gives you an idea of what stuff you should expect to get out of here. Now, in here, basically, it's magnesium and potash, soluble potash, and some sulfur. You should be able to see that in there. And what's great about this is that, as you can see by its rating here, it's 0,022. And the important part here, I feel like, is the 0 on the end part. We have plenty of nitrogen, and for the most part, not looking to add it, especially during flower. So being able to control those levels, whether you're and this is mostly water soluble as well. So you can actually just stir this up and kind of stir it in and have it ready to go relatively quickly. So this stuff, I feel like, is great. Down to Earth is a company here out of Oregon, and I like a lot of their products. And are usually sourced relatively responsibly, packaged responsibly. They always have composted boxes. You can have. This is a granular humic acid, which is another way or how I have been lowering my pH for my hard well water. Granular humic acid specifically will be more effective at adjusting your pH than like a liquid extract, because usually that is a little more pH neutral than the granular stuff, because it'll still have even some fulvic acid in it once you release it. So that'll be a little more aggressive on lowering your pH. So I use it like put it in like a tea bag, like a burlap sack, and you can either just dunk it right in the tank or put it on your input so that your water is just running over it or through it. What I did is I took a small, actually it's right here. I took a small container and then measured how much it took me to change this over a particular amount of time, and then calculate about how much I wanted to change the pH, and then over about 48 hours or so, I would let it soak, and it would gradually lower the pH down very gently. And then in about 2 days, I would pull it out, and that's how I was lowering the pH for a while. And then this last the last 2 times I've done it, I've used this other pH down stuff, and it's very small amounts for to be able to adjust it. But I do have to be careful because I don't want to do it too much at once. So and that's only if I'm doing new systems or water changes or that stuff. Any of this stuff that we're talking about, granular humic acid, or the pH down stuff that I was talking about, any acid you use, you want to use it very sparingly and as low as possible. Once you get it adjusted, you want to keep it there. You don't want your pH always fluctuating. So I get into debates with people all the time about adjusting pH and whether or not you should do it or shouldn't do it, and how acids are terrible and it's going to ruin everything. And the truth is, if you can't do basic math, then acid can definitely ruin everything. If you can do basic math, then you can put in amounts that won't ruin everything. And so, and none of the solutions should be permanent. You shouldn't always be doing it if you're in adjusting it so that, like even my high pH well water, as long as I, don't have to replace 30 to 40% of my water, my pH will buffer itself. And I can add more water to it, and there's not really a fluctuation at all. And so try to strike that balance to where you're not having to add acid of any type to your system, even if your source of water is high. Collect rainwater is another great way to do that as well, because even if your rainwater is relatively high pH, like mine is here, it has almost no buffer, so it's easy for it to change the pH, and if you add it to your system, will make the buffer go down, which will make the pH easier to change. So there's definitely different ways of achieving a pH that you want, but when you need to adjust it to get it there, if you're going to use acid, just make sure you measure it properly and do very small amounts over time. I mean, you shouldn't be going from an 8.4 pH all the way down to a 6.8 in 20 minutes. That
kill everything
for a lot of different things. So there are steps that you can take to do it, or another thing you can do is treat the water separately. If you've got a whole another big tank to fill up, then you can obviously do that as well. Fill up a big tank, treat it with whatever acid you want, let it sit for 24 to 48 hours. Make sure that it's at the right temperature. Even throw an air stone in it and bubble it for a little while, and then do a water change out with that water that's already been adjusted. So there are different ways to effectively treat water and lower your pH relatively quickly, even though there's a lot of people out there that'll tell you should just never do it. You should be very careful if you do it, but other than that, I've done it a number of times and not killed everything like some of the pundits will tell you will happen.
Yeah, as long as you don't move it more than 0.3 to 0.5 per day. Obviously, if you're going to move it a lot, try to stick to the 0.3 per day. If you're going to move it once or twice, 2 or 3 days at a time, maybe 0.5 you can get away with. But the important thing with moving pH is you do it slowly, because if you don't do it slowly, you will kill everything. If you're going to bring it down, like Marty was saying, the humic acids work very good. Fulvic acids can work good. Phosphoric acid can work really good. If you're real high in pH, aim for, muriatic acid can work if it's, above 7.6, 7.8 pH. If you have no fish in the system, though, dry ice is the cheapest. Toss that sucker right in your sump, right in your fish tank. Let the water circulate. It'll lower the pH of your whole system. The carbonic acid generated from the CO2 from the dry ice will absolutely crash, 700 or 800 gallon system. It'll bring the pH from about 8.2, 8.4 down to about a 6.4, 6.5 in a 700 to 800 gallon system. I've done it a couple times, teaching classes at the Aquaponics source. It was for the advanced class, it was one of the things we teach people. So that's absolutely one of the weirder ways to do it. I actually learned how to do that back when I did koi ponds. We used to take really big koi ponds that had really way too high pH, and we'd have to lower them over time, pretty quickly before we put the koi in, because when you're adjusting koi, you don't want it to be more than 0.2, 0.3, 0.4 pH at a time. So what we do is we take a couple blocks of dry ice. I've done ponds as big as 40,000 gallons in people's backyards. It's far cheaper to throw a couple blocks of dry ice in there than it is, gallons and gallons of acid. So it just makes a lot more sense to do it that way. So we do that before we ever put the fish in. It worked great. Re-aerated the water, make sure the CO2 is back out of it. Throw the fish in, you're all set. It's just a cheaper way to do it.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, just cheap. It's always funny. There's always different ways to do things. You just gotta, be exposed to a couple of different industries that do things in a similar manner. Some will have figured something out in the chemistry that somebody else hasn't. It's one of the nice things. I've worked both in the pool trade, the aquarium trade, and the pet trade, and the aquaponics trade, and also the plant trade. So it helps a lot as far as you're all working with water in roughly the same pH ranges, so they handle things slightly differently.
And being safe for the fish.
Yep. So what else do you have new going on there, Marty, in your grow and stuff like that?
Not much really in the grow. Mostly just waiting for the wife to pop the kid out. So, these we have just about done. These two plants here are the Oregon Blackberry by Peach Frost, and over here is the Jackhammer, and back there is the Sour Strawberry. These two will probably look like they'll take a little bit longer. I don't know if you guys can tell too much. This one's obviously a lot thicker and denser. This one here is not quite predatory long. Hard nug, and it's looking good. It just needs to stack up a little more. So I think these will probably go more like 9 or 10 weeks. And these will be done probably, Sunday will be 8 weeks for these. And so we'll definitely get these chopped down. And then after that, I have a couple of different sour bubble crosses that are tester beans from a relatively well-known breeder here on the West Coast.
Nice.
I won't shout out his name just yet, but or no, actually, he's not on the West Coast anymore.
Dun, dun, dun.
But anyway, I have some tester beans that I'm gonna pop that are some sour bubble crosses. Some of you breeding nerds, if you know sour bubble, I may have given you enough information already, but no spoilers. So I have those beans that I'm set up to pop right now, and actually we'll probably do those relatively soon. And that'll be for the next run. What's that?
Breeder nerd sounds so dirty.
Breeder nerds? What's dirty about that? That's awesome.
It sounds like a swingers club for like people that read comic books.
I think you have an extremely perverted mind, Steve. That's what
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Sorry, I'll explain why I'm a little extra goofy today, and when we get to what I've been up to.
Right on. So anyway, I have those tester beans that I'm excited to pop, and I've never actually had sour bubble, and this is a couple of tester crosses for it that sound pretty promising. So I'll have a video up on that pretty soon, and hopefully some beans popping soon. And then so this will come down, and then I'll probably wait to get anything else in here. I want to get these plants down, and whatever's left on the aquaponics side. I still have a sour strawberry over here as well. It's going to finish up. And then start swapping in some new plants. I'm going to veg for a little while. And I'll probably let these get a little bit bigger. This was kind of my first run in this little setup and with the replacement plant. So it'd be interesting to get, let plants actually veg in here and get them, probably take them a little bit taller. This is a relatively good height, but I think I could probably get them up into here pretty easily because of the ceramic metal halide is pretty cool. I haven't had any like light burning issues or anything like that. I did somehow I let one of the sips dry out. It's the one this way. I don't know if you guys can see much of it, but there are a couple
Finish a little quicker.
little brown spots on them. on some of the leaves because I let it dry out too much. But other than that, things are going relatively good in here.
Is
And
it finishing quicker?
what's that?
Is it finishing any quicker?
Finishing any quicker? Well, I haven't ran. The only strain that I had ran before is the sour strawberry, um, and I can't say that it's finishing any quicker. Um, it's pretty much on par with that. I have another sour strawberry over here under just a cheap eBay LED, and it seems to be, just about the same distance along. So I wouldn't say that it
Any any
that it's
difference in
finishing any
yield
faster, but
or
I would say that it's almost as frosty as the LED, which I find to be a little bit different. Most high intensity lights, they don't get the same frost that LED does, but the ceramic metal halide um, definitely seems to produce a high level of frost, and maybe that has something to do with the low temperature. I've always felt that high intensity lights, like HPS lights, that so much heat coming off of them can definitely, um, I feel like cause a loss in resin. So I would say, other than that, I would say production is. I mean, I guess I don't really know until I cut it down. But when you have nice fat nugs like these, and you're only throwing about 330 watts per light, that's, I feel like that's pretty efficient. But, and also knowing that the temperature dropped in the room when I swapped out the bulbs, because before these were 400-watt metal halide bulbs on this side, um, and when I swapped these out, the temperature dropped in the room um, by a solid 8 degrees just by swapping out those two bulbs. So I think that speaks to the efficacy of the lights. So most of the power that is lost. So it went from 400 watt consumption down to 330 watts. So most of that 70 watt consumption was just outputting heat, and because it's still putting out the same light measurements in terms of the bulb itself. When you compare the 330 watt ceramic metal halide output to the to just the metal halide output, it's relatively the same. Even though their tests aren't a great measure of a grow light, they still score about the same. And there's some great videos on YouTube if you look at some of the grow comparison for different bulbs. I can't think of that. I think it's Monster Gardens or something like that. It may not be their channel. I can't remember now, but they tested a wide variety of HPS bulbs, double-ended, single-ended, ceramic metal halide, lots of those. Well, I guess lamps, I should say. For all you grow light nerds, that's not dirty, right, Steve? You can't do anything with that, right? Grow light nerds, okay?
oh, I'll think of something, baby.
All right. So technically, they're lamps for all you grow light nerds. But they did a great test on all those in a comparison. And if you look at the efficacy of the different bulbs comparison at the end, you'll see that the ceramic metal halide lights from Philips score extremely high in efficacy, and that's where you're getting a high amount of light output for a low amount of heat. So that's obviously what you want, is less heat. Otherwise, you're just going to have to turn on your AC and burn more power to get rid of the hot air that you just created when you consume power. So I'm a big fan of them so far, and we'll see what it weighs up to when I actually get it cut down. And so hopefully in about 2 weeks or so, we'll have some numbers to go off of, and some product too. Obviously, see how it dries up and smokes and how dense it is and all that stuff. But I'm pretty happy with it so far, that's for sure. And these are conversion lamps too, so they're 330 watt instead of 315 watt, like you see on a lot of those. And you can use these in not any, but a lot of different magnetic ballasts that you have. They make them an 860 watt conversion for HPS as well. So if you have a 1,000 watt magnetic ballast HPS light, you can get one of these conversion bulbs and have an 860 watt ceramic metal halide light instead. And I've been looking around for a magnetic ballast I can use for it, but I haven't done it. The bulb itself is about, I want to say like 60 to 70 bucks for the lamp itself, and So as soon as I find a ballast, I'll probably snag one of those up and see what it does, because I'd be pretty interested in an 860 watt ceramic metal halide light. I know there's the 630 double-ended lights, but
Yeah.
860
Did
sounds
you
good.
want to tell people about the class we have coming up?
Oh
Even
yeah,
if we end up moving the
do that.
date because of your baby?
Yeah, pending birth. Uh, we have the class scheduled for this weekend, starting on Saturday and Sunday. Um, Obviously, the baby clause. Uh,
Yeah, we
for
might end up.
those of you that haven't been following along, my wife was due last Friday, and so we had sort of anticipated being done with all of this by now. But she's still pregnant, and if she goes into labor, then obviously I will be there instead of teaching you how to grow cannabis, and we'll just have to reschedule the class for another time. Um, but we do have that set up. It'll be all day on Saturday and Sunday. A wide variety of content. Steve has a link to the on your is it Ponics.com website, I think, right? You're muted, Steve.
Oh, it's in the description, or you can go to potentponics.com, potentponics.com. That's potentics .com, potentponics.com. And you can go to the website there and click on shop, and you'll see it under there, or you can click on the link in the description.
And so we've got a whole class scheduled to sort of cover everything from the beginning to end. We'll be harvesting some of these buds you're looking at right here, and showing you how to harvest, and just a couple little notes about that, and pretty much everything in between. We have a whole synopsis of stuff that we're trying to shove as much information as we can into 2 days. So for those of you who were more crammers as opposed to a little bit of information over time, then we'll try and shove all the information in the one weekend, cover it all from the beginning in, and you might come out of it with your head spinning, but hopefully with all the information you need. And we'll have, obviously the cameras here in the grow room like we have right now. I'll have the snake cam hooked up so that we can take a look at some close-ups of some different stuff, some training methods, super cropping. I should be able, I'm hoping I'll have an example of monster cropping. Here I have a buddy that has some monster crop plants that
Nice.
you can take a look at, and that have grown out a little bit. So they've, they're maybe a month old or so, and you can get a look at how the growth pattern is different from a traditional plant. So we'll see if we have that, but pretty much everything you can think of in between. We'll take a look at cloning. We'll cut a couple of cones. We'll do some super cropping. I super cropped the plant yesterday, so that you'll be able to, people will be able to see what it looks like after it's healed up for a couple of days. It can be a little nerve-wracking to do it first. So I'll definitely be able to show you what it looks like after it's done, because when you first do it and you take it and you bend the plant, it essentially looks like you broke it. And,
Oh yeah, I'll totally vouch for that. The first time somebody came through and super cropped my whole grow, I damn near beat the ever-living shit out of the guy because I thought he just fucked up all my plants.
I'm a big fan. I do a modified super crop. I don't do
I abuse the ever-living crap out of my plants. Super
Yeah.
cropping and training and defoliating, and I abuse the daylights out of them. People don't realize how resilient this plant is as long as you give them the right nutrients. So.
I agree, and the only way you can teach is by doing that to your plants yourself.
Yep, and not only that, showing people how far they can go.
Yeah.
Because they don't trust you if they don't do it with their own plants. But, Marty showing it, like Marty's just talking about now, him showing it and how comfortable he is doing some pretty severe looking, if you haven't seen it before, it's pretty severe looking. It looks like you just totally jacked up your plants.
Yeah, and
they rejuvenate.
It's definitely a leap of faith the first time you do it yourself. Like, even after you've seen it, I watched it a number of times, and I saw one of my friends do it in his garden, and But the first time you grab your own plant and tweak it over, it's a leap of faith for sure. And you might fuck up the first one or two. It might not turn out perfect, but you'd be surprised at how well they'll recover, even if you bend it too far and it splits a little bit. It's definitely not. The whole branch is not just going to rot and die off, which is sort of what you think. Put a Band-Aid on it. I know people put duct tape on it.
Yep.
Just to sort of cover it up, and then it'll make this nice little knot in there. And so we'll talk about why we do some of that, and a lot of that is similar to the reason you see I have a screen out, or what we call a scrog, screen to green, which is to spread the plants out. So instead of growing up and having one top that's close to the light, a whole bunch of the plant in the middle, you get a more even light distribution and sort of more of a canopy set up. So a lot of these plants are grown up and then tucked back into this rack so that they don't get too tall, and then the plant tries to start shooting up more tops. So what otherwise would have just been a small side branch now grows more vertically and gets taller. So super cropping can definitely help with that. This would be like a scrog. I guess you could also call like a low stress training, in a term that you hear a lot, where you're essentially instead of bending it to the point of sort of flexing the stem, it's you're just bending it to where you're gently turning it to where you want to go. And I would say I sort of have a hybrid thing going on in here. A couple of these are super cropped in order to get them to fit to where I want them to go, and some of them are would be considered low stress trained, to where they're the stock isn't damaged to where it knuckles up, and does that and maybe grows in the horizontal direction. It's more pulled down to where it wants to go. So those are kind of the different things that we'll set up. I'll have some plants. I have them over there that we'll be able to use and sort of set up their own little net, and get an idea of how to tuck them in and out of that. And those are just a few of the things that we'll cover this weekend. But if you guys have any questions about what kind of stuff we'll cover or when we can have classes, I know we're trying to set up an Aussie class right now, because we had a number of people from Australia that weren't able to attend because the time would be a little awkward in order for that to work out, since technically it's tomorrow there. And we did figure out.
Tomorrowland.
Yes, it's Tomorrowland. And so if you're interested in the class, that would start Friday at 4 p.m. and go until, what did we decide, 11:30? I think it was.
I forget. Whatever you decided, I'm down for. I know that you had figured out what the reasonable time was like. It was like
Yeah.
9 to 5 Aussie time, I think it came out to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
So
we
basically
seem to have had enough people to fill out a class for that based on the initial. We literally had like 5 or 6 people ask for a class off the bat for Australia, so we're more than happy to do that. So we haven't announced a date yet. Marty and I need to. We're basically gonna wait until Marty's child arrives, and then we'll figure out based on his schedule when he's able to, and then we'll work on that.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, we figured that it would be done by now, and hopefully, when we schedule another one out a little farther, she won't still be pregnant. I'm sure she won't want to be anyway. So
Marty's just that
go
good,
away.
man. You don't even know.
Sounds delish. So we'll definitely. So it was starting at 9 a.m. Saturday, or 4 p.m. Friday Pacific time. So figure that out for your time zone, and if that time frame works for you, then we'll definitely get that set up. We've had a couple of people ask about maybe a 2-hour class for just a few nights in a row or once a week. So if you've got some requests like that, then we'd love to hear them, and we'll try to group up as many people as we can, so that people can have a class at the time that works for them. So throw your times in chat. leave them in the comment section. Um, whatever it is you need to do. You have to lift that up, Steve. I can't see it. Oh, there you go. Nice. Looking good, man. You're muted if you're talking. I think he took off his headset, though. Anyway. I think that was probably bubble. There, he's back.
What was the question?
Is that some bubble?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what I've been up to. I've been making lots of bubble and then converting that into rosin. And I have to say that it's the strongest dab I've ever done in my whole life. It's the best stuff I think I've ever had.
Nice.
Yeah, solventless is the way to go. Bubble to rosin, nothing beats it.
Sounds tasty.
You have no idea. I need to send you some. That's so good.
Awesome. So do you have any other stuff you want to add about the class? We talked about the Australian one. I talked about...
Oh, yeah. We're going to show you how to make that. We're going to show you how to make the bubble. I'm going to show you how to make the rosin. We'll show you how to take trim that you get from your leftover plants once you trim your bud up and your flowers up and convert it all the way into something that you can hit through a dab rig. Something you can hit through this and everything in between. You know, everything from seed to clones, nutrients, harvesting, integrated pest management. We talked earlier about pest management. We talked all about how to deal with any kind of pest you can imagine. We'll talk about all the different nutrients, how to dose, what to supplement with to replace certain nutrients, different common problems, common mistakes. I'm going to have a really good hash making tutorial. I have a bunch of really cool stuff lined up for that. The pile of bubble being half put out for that. We're going to show you step 1, step 2, step 3, but it'll be like a cooking show, so you don't have to sit around and wait for it to take a long time. We'll be able to cover the hash making in probably 2 or 3 hours. But it's definitely something you don't want to miss if you get the opportunity to check it out.
Right on.
That was a bunch of 73 micron hash, just gland heads. It's kind of the best quality hash that I have, the last batch that we made. So we saved it so we can do a rosin press on it. It's about 16 grams there. So
that sounds good. Oh man, I gotta take off. I gotta start putting some kids to bed.
Okay. Yeah, I had 1 or 2 more things I was going to touch on before we wrapped up, and I was going to say the governor of Vermont is now kind of half balking on whether or not to sign their legalization bill. Maryland just granted their first medical marijuana license, so congrats to Maryland. They granted their first production license to a grower. The company is called Forward Grow, based in Baltimore. So that was pretty cool. I think we might end up doing, based on people's feedback, I've definitely been heavily considering doing a separate news show. For those of you that are of not, I don't know, I'm kind of curious about y'all's feedback. If you guys are interested in a separate news show, I'll spend an extra couple hours a week and put together a decent news show. And it seems to be some of my more popular articles on the Facebook group seem to be more news related, politics related, or just interesting news article related to having to do with cannabis. So I figured somebody asked me if I had to do a separate show on that, and I thought, hey, that might be a good idea. So if you think that's a good idea, please leave a comment in the description there and tell me if you think it's good or not. What else do we have? Israel has been doing clinical trials on cannabis to treat traumatic brain injury. They've had very good results so far. The study isn't completed yet, but they'll have their next round of results on June 4th and 6th, between June 4th and 6th. If you're interested in more information on that, the original article was on the Times of Israel. But it was just cool to see a That's actually what the government has a patent on. It is cannabis is a neural protectant. Is what the U.S. government patent is on cannabis. For those of you that aren't aware, most of you guys out there that are pretty hardcore cannabis activists already are aware of that. And then there's a specific cannabis pet dispensary opening up in where is it? Soki. I'm trying to figure out what state this is. Sorry, in Canada, in Vancouver. Vancouver's first pet cannabis dispensary opened. I thought that was kind of funny. But that's been kind of the bigger news. There hasn't been a ton of huge cannabis news in this past week, aside from the Vermont thing I mentioned earlier. LA is half considering allowing something similar to coffee shops, but we'll see how that goes. It's just it was just introduced to the city council. We'll see if that gets anywhere before we talk about it further. But aside from that, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, Roger? If not, we'll kind of wrap the show up.
No, I think we go ahead and wrap it up. That was a lot of great information. I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me again.
We
was having a good time.
I apologize. Leighton from Kingdom Aquaponics will hopefully be joining us next week. He had a whole bunch of problems that were very unusual with Google Hangouts and his audio setup. So we're going to try and get him set up for next week and see if we can't get him back on. We appreciate Roger popping in. There was actually a miscommunication on the time on his end. So he thought he was supposed to be on an hour earlier, which is why he had to leave kind of early. So we do apologize for that. But we'll get him on again. He's a great guy. So we'll have him on again. So appreciate everyone's time. Check us out. Hopefully see you guys this weekend at the Aquaponic Cannabis class. Check that out over at Ponics. Check Marty out over at AP Meds on YouTube. You can check me out at Ponics on YouTube. You can check out Roger at trueaquaponics.com. You can check out Kingdom Aquaponics at kingdomaquaponicsllc.com. We appreciate having everybody on the show. Appreciate the guests that are and the viewers on the chat here that have been talking with us, asking us questions. As always, we have a pretty good crew of people now that are joining us all the time. We really appreciate you guys coming out every week and chatting with us. Don't think that goes unnoticed. We really love having you guys and asking really good questions. Thanks again for Roger here for joining us. As always, since we picked him up a couple of weeks ago, he's been a great guy to have on, asking really good questions and giving really good input. So we appreciate having him on. And what was your website again? ilovegrowingmarijuana.com.
Well, yeah, I work at ilovegrowingmarijuana.com, and we've got a grow supply store and with specialty items and a live voice chat coming up real soon.
Awesome, sounds great. Yeah, and if you guys are looking to check out more, definitely check out. I teach classes over at ouroborosfarms.com. You can check them out over near San Francisco. I teach in-person classes, or you can check us out over the weekend. Check out potentponics.com, click on shop, and you can find the link to the online class this weekend. I appreciate everybody coming out, and definitely give everybody, support the people that support the show. So, all right, thanks a lot, and see you guys next week. Cheers.
Happy growing.